evolving digital landscape, for your business to thrive, you must adapt or die. Welcome to Marketing in the Age of AI, the podcast helping you harness the power of AI and marketing tools to revitalize and grow your business. And now here's your host, marketing expert and author of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI, Emmanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Marketing in the Age of AI. Today, we're going to have an opportunity to hear from Jonathan Green, who is an experienced AI operator, a published author, and a technologist in a lot of ways. And he is going to give us the secret way to prompt write and to stay on top of prompt writing as AI continues to change and be dynamic. So, Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. It's one of my favorite topics.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. And you have a podcast too. Tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, sure. I'm the host of the Artificial Intelligence podcast, where we really focus on showing people how they can use artificial intelligence to have 4-day weekend every weekend, increase their revenue without spending more time on the business, just using AI to kind of get those results that we've all been promised.
That's awesome. Well, explain to me a little bit about which of the tools that you're using right now and what you're getting the best results from.
So I'm really a simple guy. I'm really at heart a ChatGPT guy. I use Claude a little bit as a backup for some alternative tasks, but 99% of the time I'm using ChatGPT. And there's this big misconception that all these other tools do many, many different things. Most tools are just using ChatGPT in the back end via the API anyways.
Yep.
Even when you see a tool that takes your video, creates a clip, or creates podcast show notes, they're just taking that audio, transcribing it, and sending it to ChatGPT anyways. So I often cut out the middleman. I do use some other tools, but mostly those are for testing and experimentation.
Sure.
So I can then talk to my audience about them. And there are some tools that they make sense for someone like me. Like I have some AI video tools that I use, but those only make sense if you're teaching AI to see, because you can make a video, then it catches the eye and people will watch that video, then read your post. For any other business, they're not really very useful yet. So that's really the starting point. So mostly what you really need is a text generator, an LLM, and it can be whichever one you like. It can be Pi, it can be Claude, it can be ChatGPT, and then an image generator. I'm a big Midjourney fan. I've definitely done a lot of work with Flux because everyone likes to talk about that. But
Yeah.
Flux just gets you very similar results in a slightly different methodology. But really, my experience, you kind of need those two tools. And then if you're doing any type of video content, audio content, then you need something that helps you to edit that content out. I use Descript. Descript is probably the most powerful AI tool in the market, and they don't tell people that they're an AI.
Oh, interesting.
But it has really powerful from catching every time I say in my podcast and deleting all those, to cleaning up the background noise. It has the best like audio enhancer. It has the best green screen removal. It has all these amazing tools inside of it.
Yeah.
And it creates my show notes for my episodes, and it creates my YouTube description. So I use that tool a lot.
And is that like a corollary to like Opus Clips? Is it similar to that?
So Opus, I do use a tool similar to Opus called Video. The way Descript is a little bit more manual. So when you're choosing, it does a slightly different process for picking clips. They've improved their process. They've added new updates since the last time I made clips inside of Descript, but it's more of it's more of like a video editor that lets you edit by text. So it has a lot more features, whereas Opus does one thing, which is pick clips.
Yep.
And I use another tool for that. I use a tool called Video that just picks the clips for me, but really for editing content, for cleaning up the audio noise, and for kind of generating my podcast episodes or my YouTube videos, anything I edit myself, I edit it in Descript fast.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting dynamic we have now, right? Where we have these the software tools that have kept up and continue to integrate AI into parts or part of their process. They're kind of baking it in, and then we don't even have to think about it at this point.
Yeah, I really like tools that they just see AI as one component as opposed to them being AI forward. As much as I'm an AI enthusiast, an AI expert, an AI consultant, I really don't AI is not always the answer, right? It just is sometimes the answer, and it's just one of many tools.
Yeah.
I spend a lot more time on automation and if this, then that. When this task happens, then that happens, than anything else.
Yeah.
That's really my kind of methodology. And I think there's this temptation that your business needs to have AI integrated to every single task you do.
Right.
And my approach with any business is to say, instead of being tool first, let's be problem solution first.
Yeah.
So when I'm working with a client or consulting with a company, I say, what do your employees hate doing the most? What's the thing they do that they have to do it every week, but it lowers morale? They have to do it. Or what are the tasks where they're the slowest? And these are usually tasks that no one talks about, like email handling is huge, looking for files or attending meetings. Like we all hate going to unnecessary meetings,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Other thing, people have sales teams, we often talk about like they don't fill in all the stuff in Salesforce. They don't fill in all the forms
Right.
because that's not what they're good at. Like it's a different skill, data entry and sales. So I go, let's find a process, and this is more automation than anything else. Well, you already record the phone calls because you have to for compliance. You already send those. Half the time, they already send those to a transcription tool. All we have to do is then take that transcript, get notes made from it, convert it into a specific format based on a template, and then send it back to your software. And depending on the software, you can either do it automatically or it has to be copied and pasted, but it eliminates so much work for the person.
Yeah.
And now we can reference those previous conversations because let's be honest, it's hard to remember exactly what you talked to everyone about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. So having those notes do become important, even though at the time you go, I'll remember, and then we never do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a smart way to do it. I'm wondering, have you found any kind of new API tools to help connect pieces of software that don't normally talk together?
So I'm a Pabbly guy. There's a lot of tools on the market. Zapier is very, very, very expensive and overpriced.
Yeah.
So there's two directions you can go in. One direction is you can build your own server, costs $8 to $15 a month, and basically you can have unlimited interactions. You just have to build on top of it with a tool called N8N. I think it's pronounced Nathan or N8N. I don't know. And you can set that self. If you know a little bit about Linux, you can set it up in a day. It's a little bit more complicated than I like to go, but the beauty of Pabbly is you pay once for life. I have a lifetime license, and you can add on additional licenses if you need more triggers and actions per month. They
Yeah.
have really great, really responsive support. I've really had great experience with them for the past 5 years when I
Nice.
switched from Zapier,
Yep.
where I was paying Zapier thousands of dollars a year, like many thousands at one of the highest level plan. And now I don't have any integration bill. So I'm really
Yeah.
pleased with that experience. But mostly you want to look for a tool that has the integrations that you want. So if this doesn't integrate with the tools you have, you need something that will actually integrate between the two. But I really love Pabbly for if this, then that, because whenever I get stuck, I can submit a support ticket and get a response within a few hours with a
That's
video
awesome.
or screenshots.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, let's dig into this prompt engineering, prompt writing, and just give me like the high level and then like 2 or 3 things that we got to pay attention to and how we need to start changing the way we think about prompt writing.
So the first thing you want to do is switch ChatGPT into Genius mode or any AI you're using. The way AIs are designed is that they're always in kind of beginner mode. They've got their guardrails on so that you can't make mistakes, you can't get good responses, and it won't tell you if you've made a mistake. So you really want to basically activate two special features, which is one, it will ask you questions, and two, you can have a multi-step conversation. So I use a really simple prompt structure, and there's a couple of variations on this. The first version is, this is my goal, and then a question. So I'll say, I want to figure out who my ideal customer is. What information do you need from me?
Right.
So by asking it in this way, it knows, because I've said, ask me a question. I don't ask you to ask me a question unless I'm going to respond. So now it knows it's multi-part conversation. Now it's asking me questions. So I want it to tell me if it needs more information. So I'll often say things like, I might add on modifiers like, this is a chat to me like a friend. Ask me one question at a time. Don't ask me 10 questions in one batch.
Yeah.
So that will lower your stress levels, because sometimes getting 10 questions can be really hard. So
Yeah.
that's the first way to do it. And that immediately will get you a better result. Another really great start is to say, we're going to work on a project together. I'm going to tell you what I need, and then you're going to ask me questions until we figure out the best way to accomplish this. That's another version. That's from Tim Slee. He's an amazing author who writes fiction under the name FX Holden. I read it in one of his books about submarine warfare, and I
Oh,
was like, "This
wow.
prompt is so good. I have to add it because it's so smart."
Yeah,
And it's just saying, "Hey, we're gonna work on something together. You ask questions, and then let's figure out how we're gonna do this together," because it makes it collaborative.
yeah,
And as soon as you're in collaborative mode, you don't have to be as smart. Those are the two basic ways of prompting. Those two ways of they get you very similar results. Or just two ways of talking to it.
yep,
The next level beyond that is people often say, "I want it to write like me. I want it to do things like me." This is called shot. So for some reason, we call every time you give it an example, it's called a shot. So if you give it one example, it's one shot, two, three, multi-shot. So I was working on something today where I said, "Oh, I've written about 25 of these short emails. Here's all 25 of the last 25 I wrote." So you get a sense of my structure because they're all very similar structure. And I said, do you understand the structure that I'm using?" And he goes, "Yes." I go, "Okay, great. Now here's a person I want to write a message to. Here's the pieces of information." And I said, "Ask me questions as you need." And so now it's collaborative. And the important thing is that with the output, you always want to read it. So sometimes it will say something like, "That's not quite how I would say it. Let's tweak this sentence. Or let's tweak that sentence." It's usually not that much because it's really sounding like me. So if you want it to sound more like you can feed it examples and come from this methodology, which is, "I want to do this task. Here's some examples of my work. What more information you need?" So we're not adding that much to the prompt. We're just giving
yeah.
it some samples.
I like it. And then, how do we as marketers keep that kind of authentic fabric and that authentic feel to the work the output that we're getting from the LLMs?
So I mostly use AI tools to help me do things faster as opposed to replace me. So
Uh-huh.
in the example I gave you, whenever I have it creating a piece of content, whether sometimes I'll have it like reformat my LinkedIn posts so that
Right.
it's that snappy content. It's like one lot sentence per line. It has like different icons next to it. I still read it. So I'll have it do 10 outputs and I might cut out like Frankenstein pieces from 3 different outputs and then modify the hook. So you have to still be engaged with the content. You should never publish something you haven't read.
Yeah,
That's the most important thing.
for
So
sure.
it's so tempting to stop paying attention. And this is the same for any employee. As soon as you stop checking their work, the work quality diminishes. It's just the law. That's just how it is. So you always want to check any output. So, and then start by using AI to improve your efficiency rather than replace yourself. So I really like to use AI to help me sort my emails, to help me organize things, and then it allows me to spend more time being authentic. Like a really simple example is a lot of people use AI to write their comments on LinkedIn. Very common strategy on LinkedIn, right? You do X comments per day, 10, 20, 50, whatever whoever your coach is, they'll tell you a different number, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, "Oh, that's a lot of work. My feed stinks. I'll use AI." Now, a bunch of things are happening in the back end. First of all, most people can tell when you've written an AI comment. They're just pretty obvious.
Yep.
And that there's a lot of people that like they'll block you, ban you, and like it kind of creates a bad taste in their mouth. So the second thing that happens is you make your feed worse. So if you comment on stuff that you don't like, you're going to see more stuff you don't like. Like
Right.
that's how the feed works. So you're
Yeah.
actually creating a process that makes life work. Like people, one of my favorite times of the day is actually doing my LinkedIn comments because everything I see is interesting to me. Because I
Right.
only comment on stuff I find interesting. So
Yeah.
I comment on people that I like. There's some people that I follow that are very small creators. There's this one lady, I think she's from Italy, and she does this really interesting fashion AI stuff, which is a field I'm very interested in. She'll do all these concepts that are, and she doesn't have a huge following, but I always comment on her posts because I want to make sure LinkedIn, I'm like, keep showing more.
Exactly.
Something
Yeah.
very unique, very
Yeah.
cutting edge. So that's an important part of the process that AI can actually make it worse. And it's simple. Like if you just go, "Oh, the answer to everything isn't always AI." Now, certainly for organizing my content, for doing research, another great place I use AI is to organize all my news feeds. So I use a tool called Feedly
Uh-huh.
that has like 50 RSS feeds or just news story feeds and YouTube channels and people that I follow. And it pumps in all that information and sorts it by what it thinks is most useful to me and has a little AI in there. I don't know how smart their AI is. I can't really tell, but it gives me the 25 stories it recommends for the day and I up and down vote them. And it's just for me. It's not like a public up and down vote to let it know what stories I'm interested in, what stories I'm not.
Yeah.
So it doesn't keep showing me stories about fundraising because those don't matter to me. Like this company raised that. That's a news story, but it's not for it doesn't matter for me. I care about a new update or a new feature, things like that. So that saves me a ton of time that I can then spend working on my content, engaging with my audience. Because the main ways we waste time, like the main places we lose time, is email, unnecessary meetings, and looking for stuff. So
Right.
AI is really good at solving those problems. Like a great example is you've posted a bunch of content to a social media platform and you don't know what to do next. You can take a screenshot of all your statistics, send that screenshot to ChatGPT or whichever AI you want, and say what worked and what didn't work. What should I
Right.
do more of?
Like that. Yep.
And very simple, because most of us who are creative types are not very analytical types. I'm not good at statistics. I never took statistics in high school. I did calculus instead. Not very useful. It hasn't come up very often for me. I did a lot of
Yeah.
physics, all that stuff, and never use it. So I never did statistics, which I kind of regret. And it solves that problem where you go, look at this data, or you can say anything where you just need to analyze something, it's very good at. So another cool way to use it, a way that I'm working on a big project with one of my business partners, is that he was having a problem with the phone sales. And here's my idea. He's really good at, but he was having a problem passing it down to his team.
Yep.
And they just had some scripting issues. I said, why don't you record yourself doing sales calls for a week, take that and feed all that data to AI and say that which calls made a sale and which calls didn't, to figure out what's working and what's not, and then use that to generate a script. So a lot of what you're already doing, you can just use it to make you better at it, or to analyze what you're doing and say, oh, this is what I'm doing right. This is what I'm doing wrong. I do this all the time. So sometimes I do write articles that are AI assisted, but it's because I do the research. I said, here's the research I want to use. Here's the tone I want to have. Here's the length I want to have. Here's stuff I've done. And then I read the article and change stuff and match my style. So you can use AI, but never for more than half of the task. If AI writes the rough draft, you have to write the final draft. If you
Right.
write the rough draft, then AI can format it. So it can do one or the other. But when you let it do both, that's when things start to go off the rails. Because if you could do a task by pushing a button, so can anyone else.
No, for sure. Well, that's amazing. I love just the concept of working on this kind of problem solution that's very simplified. What's my problem? How can I find the solution for it? We know that the adoption rates of AI in marketing has been pretty robust, but that CEOs and kind of mid-level businesses have not fully embraced AI yet. In a lot of ways, haven't implemented it. What are your recommendations to those CEOs or founders that haven't yet started that initiative of let's find some places where we can replace these repetitive tasks for people so they can go do more creative work and find a tool to get it going?
So you've kind of led to my first answer, which is to see that AI is not meant to replace you, replace your business, replace your employees, because a lot of people are feeling that fear. And that's because that's how AI is marketed.
Right.
AI is really marketed as, hey, with this tool, you can fire everyone. So nobody wants to train their replacement. But when you think of it, just imagine if you could have every employee work an extra 2 hours per week,
Yes.
or even an extra 2 hours per day.
Yeah.
That's really where the value of AI is, that it just lets them do things faster, a little bit more efficiently, and accelerate them. So the first step is to look at your company as a whole and say, where are we losing time or money or inefficiencies? Or even look at your staff and say, which task is hurting morale the most? What's the task everyone hates doing but has to get done? And it might be answering email, it might be answering support emails, it might be organizing files or doing data entry, or everyone likes to do the sales calls, but they hate to do the data afterwards, or whatever those things are. Look at all of those and then make a list of the problems and kind of rank them, and then look and see, is there an AI solution for that? Like
Yep.
the real value of an AI consultant or fractional AI is someone who comes in and goes, this is possible, that's not possible. This tool will do it, this tool won't do what it says.
Yeah.
That's what you're really looking for. My job is not to tell you which tools to use. My job is to tell you which tools to not use.
Right.
90% of what I say is that doesn't do what you think it was, that won't solve your problem. So start off from problem solution. The problem for a lot of CEOs is that the board of directors will come in and say, hey, we want you to implement AI. And they go, great. What do you mean by AI? They go, we don't know, but we know we want it.
Yeah. Right.
That's really hard. And we've seen where companies have felt this pressure, and then they bring in an AI tool that doesn't do anything, but it makes the board of directors happy. And then now the developers or the tech team has to maintain it, even though they know no one's using it, it's not doing anything. That's not a situation you want to get into.
For sure.
So when you do tool first, you buy, here's what happens, right? I'm a dad. So when I go to the hardware store, I'm buying something. If I come home with a hammer, something's getting hammered. If I come
Right.
everything is getting measured, right? We'll spend
Yeah.
I'll spend all day measuring the kids. Here's how long your arm is. Here's how long your foot is. Centimeters versus inches. So the problem is if you buy the tool, then you have to justify that purchase.
Sure.
You want to go in the other direction. And not every company needs AI, right? I was having a conversation with another CTO earlier today, and I said, I can't think of a reason a restaurant would need AI. It can't cook the food. It can't bring it to the table, right? Maybe you can upload your spreadsheets to ChatGPT for some data analysis, right? But that's like the least, right? It's like such a small use case. It's not going to replace any employees. It's not going to make a difference.
For sure.
Maybe you'll use it for things like you take a picture of the freezer of all your ingredients in the freezer, just figure out, oh, what am I buying too much of? What am I buying too little? So just data analysis, right?
Yep.
The lowest level thing, which is useful, but not every business and not every problem is solved by artificial intelligence. And more important, right, is, and if you're a CTO, even more important, go and talk to each of the team leaders or every member of staff. If you have a smaller team, if you have less than 50 employees, you can just talk to everyone and say, hey, what is the thing you do every week that you hate? What's a
Right.
repetitive task that you do every week that you don't have to pay 100% attention? You know you have to get it done, right? Or what are the things that are time wasters or that you get distracted? And sometimes it's shifting gears. So we have two parts of our brain, the analytical and the creative part.
Sure.
So if you're doing planning and then creative and then planning and then creative back and forth, just the gear shifting can lead to a major decrease in effectiveness and efficiency.
Yeah.
Another place is a lot of people, most companies, it just depends on where your company is. Their biggest problem is meetings.
Yep.
So big meetings are where if you have to go to a meeting where you don't talk, then you shouldn't be in that meeting.
Right.
There's no reason for you to be in a meeting
You
where
just
you're
get
not
the summary. Just get the summary from Otter and then keep moving.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that can be automated where the recording gets sent to Otter, then it gets sent to ChatGPT for a summary, and then it says, only send to Jonathan the parts that are about him, that are for his department. Just send him the tasks he needs to do. So you can actually get a task list. Instead of having to sit there for 2 hours and find out what part am I supposed to do, you find out just the parts that are relevant for you.
Yeah.
Most of the time, and this is something when I used to work for other companies and work with people, I dreaded. I was once in a meeting that lasted 8 hours to discuss how we're going to do a 15-minute task the next day.
Oh no.
And every time I tried to leave, they would shout at me. And I go, guys,
Yeah.
this is what happens when you have people in their early 20s. We're wasting time. I said, I don't care. You know what? I don't care what decision you make. Whatever we decide we're doing tomorrow, I'll just do it. 15
Yeah.
minutes, who cares? You make a bad
Right.
decision. I'd rather have 8 hours back. But you see this at scale, and this can affect a lot of departments. One thing really interesting developer that I was working with said he hates Scrum meetings. What would happen is every day they would have a meeting 30 minutes after they would get to work. So you can't
Right.
really get into the groove with programming in 30 minutes because you know you have a meeting, so you kind of don't get anything done. And then you go to that meeting for 30 minutes where you just talk about and you're out of you're knocked out of your zone anyways. You go back, takes you half an hour to get back in the zone. Now it's 10 a.m. Right? 2 hours have been
Wow.
lost by having these meetings and this
Waste.
daily meetings. That's just
Yep.
someone came up with and wrote a book about it. So really it allows you to decrease the things that cost you money and no one enjoys. Like when I have here's how I think. When I have a meeting with all my employees, I look around and go, this meeting is costing me X per hour.
Absolutely.
That's
Yep.
how I look at it. And when bosses,
Absolutely.
and that's how you can tell when the person running the meeting is the boss versus a manager. Because you're like,
Yes.
wait a minute, there's 10 people here, each getting paid $20 an hour. This is a $200 meeting.
Yeah, exactly. How am I going to get an ROI on this?
Yeah, so those are some of the approaches that I take.
All right. Well, I love it. Well, just as a closer, let's just say I'm a CEO. Help me write a prompt for how I figure out how to implement my first AI initiative. Just like fresh sheet of paper.
Yeah, you've just done it. I'm trying to figure out how to implement AI in my business in a way that's effective and useful. What information do you need from me? That's it.
It's beautiful. I love the simplicity of it. Jonathan, I wish I could talk to you for the next 2 hours, but I know you got some other important things to do. How do people get in touch with you if they want to have a conversation about implementing AI in their business?
Yeah, the best place is to find me on LinkedIn. I'm very responsive in the chat, or you can find me at servenomaster.com. If you Google Serve No Master, anywhere you go, everywhere, you're going to find me because every single answer is me. And of course, you can get a free copy of my bestseller, ChatGPT Profits. There's a free download link that'll be in the show notes below. And you click the link at the bottom of the show notes or right below the video in the description. you're going to find a link that says ChatGPT Profits. You click that link, you'll see a little form. Just ask for your email address so I know where to send it. And you'll get a copy of Bestseller in less than a minute. No spam. I promise.
No, I can confirm that it gets delivered very quickly, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate your insights, and you're a true professional in a field of charlatans. So thank you very much, Jonathan.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Oh, you have a great day. Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emmanuel on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening.